This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1719, Aquaman movie review and comic talk.
Laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek, uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is.
I'm Ian Levinstein.
I'm Adam Murdo.
And I'm Chris Eberly.
Welcome to the show, everybody. It's a three-pronged attack here with three different geeks in three different locations. Myself at the CGS studio, Ian Levinstein coming at you from Brooklyn, and Chris Eberly from his stronghold in Bridgewater, New Jersey.
Indeed.
I'd say this is our trident of fury.
So fitting, so fitting.
Neither location, neither time nor space shall deter us from recording, gentlemen. I'm honored you joined us.
Yay, verily.
Murd, who's our sponsor today?
Oh, well, Chris, our sponsor today is once again our friends at the Collection Drawer Company.
Ah, yes.
Makers of the Drawer Box, the easy access storage solution for your comic book collection. Easy access because they open via a pull-out drawer in the front of the box as opposed to that pesky lid on the top of the box, which makes it nigh impossible to access the comics in a long box on the bottom of a stack of long boxes. And if you've got a collection at home consisting of many such piles of long boxes, you know how inconvenient that can be. But it's a thing of the past with the Drawer Box. And not only are they convenient, they're also extremely sturdy. Actually, as of this past year, they have improved the design by strengthening the outer support sleeve with a double wall construction for every size and shape of drawer box they make, which makes them more stackable and more stable than ever before. It used to be they recommended a maximum 5 drawer boxes in a stack. You can probably go a little higher than that now with this new double wall design that they've added. And they make drawer boxes not only in comic book sizes, but also LP record sizes, action figure sizes, sewing supply sizes, magazine size. To whatever you're collecting, there's probably a drawer box that will help you store and access them that much more easily. They also offer accessories that go with their drawer boxes, such as the box locks anchors, which help to prevent box tipping and allow you to stack those boxes with even more confidence, and the box sort upright dividers, which helps you to organize and divide your collection within a drawer box and prevent them from tipping over, spilling over, causing spine cracking and other damage within your drawer boxes. And if you happen to need a lot of drawer boxes to house your collection, to replace a whole bunch of those traditional long boxes, they do offer volume discounts for large orders. So stop by collectiondrawer.com to read a few more details. Also, if you'd like to check them out on Facebook, you can find them under the name Drawer Box, that's all one word, storage system, and on Instagram as Drawer Boxes, again, all one word. So that is Collection Drawer Company and their fine product, the Drawer Box, several of which I've got back at my own cluttered abode, and I must say they do help tremendously with the accessibility of my many, many, many comic books, whether I've read them or not.
Murd, as always, you're a magnificent spokesperson.
I do my best, Chris.
And their slogan, don't break your back while hiking up your drawers.
If it isn't, it should be.
Gentlemen, Happy New Year to you both, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Happy New Year.
All my time.
Happy belated birthday, Mr. Murd.
Yes, happy belated birthday. The 40th birthday.
Yes, indeed, the 40th. Celebrating 4 fabulous decades of furry-faced futility.
You've got 5 years on me, sir. I'm hitting number 35 in 2 weeks.
Oh, well.
And since we're talking about this, I must admit, tomorrow I'll be 46 years old. So
I don't
bunch of January babies.
Yes. I'm firmly in the claws of middle age. In fact, you'll be amused to hear that I had to go to a podiatrist today because I think I might have some tendonitis in my heel, behind the back of my foot, because I've been running for so long since I was a teenager. And it worked out fine, but again, you feel like those talons of middle age sinking in. Got to enjoy ourselves while we can, gentlemen.
I'm going to a chiropractor because I've been experiencing sciatica. So that's where I'm going tomorrow. So we're all falling apart here, people.
Yes, those talons have a very wide reach, don't they?
Indeed. Well, on a brighter note, I want to ask you guys a question before we dive into our topics. Did anybody get any really geek-related items for the holidays?
Well, I did receive a copy of Infinity War on 4K / Blu-ray. So
Nice.
I now have a digital copy of that. Just in time for it to go on Netflix. But as some people would know, that will not last because
True.
With Disney's streaming service coming around the bend, I like to own my own digital copies of things, knowing that I'll always have one when I need one. So I got that, and I may very well, if I'm playing my cards right, which I believe I am, I will probably have a PlayStation 4 for my birthday upcoming, and once that happens, I will be able to play more of the game that I'm going to discuss later on in this episode that involves a spider swinging through New York.
All right. Ian, I'm sorry. When did you say your birthday was again?
The 28th of January.
28th. All right. How about you, Murd? Any geek bounty for you?
It was actually kind of a lean year for presents in general, Chris. I think between Christmas and birthday, which are a week apart after all, stacked together, it would probably occupy less than a cubic foot of space. But, as we get older, we need less stuff.
True.
So I did get my usual large gift certificate to Golden Eagle Comics. So that's a gift that keeps on giving. And a few DVDs of interest. I got a copy of Zardoz starring Sean Connery.
Oh! I gotta watch. I've never seen that movie. I have to watch it.
Oh, well, I'll try to watch it before our gathering at your house, and then I can let you borrow my copy.
Honored, brother.
As
Honored.
you did for me with Flash Gordon last year, and I
Indeed.
enjoyed that viewing experience so much, Chris, that I also got a copy of Flash Gordon for my birthday with Alex Ross cover artwork and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And, Ian, I got a copy of The Venture Brothers Season 6 on DVD as well.
Well done.
I'm
All right.
working my way through Season 4 as we speak, actually. I'm realizing just how many of these episodes I missed when they were first run on Adult Swim.
Yeah, no, I just barely finished the most recent season on streaming before it went away, so I'm caught up. But on the bright side, you'll probably have at least a year and a half, if not more, to catch up on Venture Brothers because they're not exactly timely.
Right, I know how they do. Yeah.
My selection. I got a thrilling gift. My brother bought me. He knows me so well. It just came out this past year because the 50th anniversary. A massive coffee table book entitled "Behind the Planet of the Apes," and it takes you through. I'm still reading. It takes you through the entire history behind the original film. And since I'm I'm so in love with that movie, I'm just besotted. And just to get this book, I've just been page to page, all the behind the scenes information, like the illustrations, the storyboards, all that. Just this huge grin on my face. It's a magnificent tome. So good stuff.
Love the title.
Yep. So I'm really enjoying that. All right, Aquaman. I've been looking forward to talking about this film.
Aquaman.
I should have done Ted Knight. Ian, thanks for covering for me there. That's every time you got exactly. Well done. No Aquaman conversation can start for long without Ted Knight. In fact, let me bring down my Meagle Aquaman from my shelf here. And I think there's one in the CGS studio too, if I remember correctly. So.
Yep, I can see him. He's giving me the eyeball from across the room right now.
Although the Meagle Aquaman is very much not in the tradition of the Jason Momoa Aquaman, but he's the original. He will suffice. So, all right, let's try to start with opening comments. Like, what was your guys' initial impressions of the movie? Ian, how about you?
Well, if you had told me 15 years ago that I was going to enjoy an Aquaman movie, I was going to enjoy Man of Steel more than I was going to enjoy a Batman-Superman crossover movie, and more than I was going to enjoy a Justice League movie, I would have kicked you out of my house and called you a liar. and yet, that is exactly what happened. and I'm still not exactly sure why, but it was just so much fun. And that's what I needed at that point. It was silly. It was at times outright stupid, but it was just so on the nose, not taking Aquaman too seriously, that I enjoyed every damn minute of it. So yeah, I was thrilled with it.
How about you, Murd?
Well, I managed to be almost entirely unspoiled when I went into the theater. I saw it, it was a late showing, like 9 p.m. on New Year's Day, my 40th birthday. Took my dad along. And up to that point, the only preconception I went in with was something that I got from one of your Facebook posts, Ian. In which you said something akin to what you just said, what a world we're living in where an Aquaman movie is better than a Man of Steel or a Batman v Superman movie. You mentioned that A, the script was, quote, so stupid it hurts, and B, there was an octopus playing the drums. And
Yes.
So those were the only two things I really knew about this movie going in. And I'm kind of glad that I read that thing that you posted, Ian, because it did cushion the blow. The dialogue was, in spots, extremely inane. And the plot was a little on the Swiss cheesy side. There's really quite a few things in this movie that, in terms of plot and character, that could have stood to be developed a little bit further. I mean, not to take it to the point of taking itself too seriously, Ian, because that's another excellent point you made there, that this movie certainly is not guilty of that sin. But it's a beautiful movie on the visual level. You know, the visual design, the sound design, both top notch. I would argue Oscar-worthy, and probably the best I've seen in any, well, certainly in any DC superhero movie that I've seen to date. And it was just a rollicking, big dumb good time. So I certainly wasn't disappointed in it in that regard. I would have enjoyed it more if I weren't tacking up a lung through most of the running time, because I caught a case of the Christmas crud, the same thing that had me hacking in the background while Chris and I were talking about the Submariner in our last Spotlight episode. It was still clinging to me when we went to see Aquaman, so I felt like I needed to be in an aqua lung.
And one of your favorite albums, my friend.
It certainly is.
Yeah. All right. We should mention, of course, we're going to spoil the movie to death in case a listener hasn't seen it yet. My reaction, gentlemen, was similar to yours. I should preface by saying that one of my favorite parts of Justice League was Jason Momoa as Aquaman.
Yeah.
So I was looking forward to seeing him continue with that interpretation in this film, and I wasn't disappointed. Just a couple quick general comments before we dive into more detail. I agree wholeheartedly about the look of it, the sound, and while in many ways it was dopey, but it was dopey in a way that A, I was kind of expecting, and B, really didn't bother me, because I liked how they did try to bring in some of the history and intrigue of Atlantis. Like Willem Dafoe was a tremendous actor, so he's there as Volko. I enjoyed all that, but what really struck me about the film was how well they captured the look of so many of the classic Aquaman characters. Black Manta was breathtaking.
Yeah.
Like, wow. I mean, they didn't skimp at all and just like, okay, we're going to lift him from the comic and put him into the movie. And it worked. And also, I mean, it was kind of goofy, but when Ocean Master put his helmet on, I'm like, wow, it's Ocean Master. Like they sometimes these adaptations, they either because it just won't work in a transfer, or the filmmakers see it as embarrassing, they don't make that direct translation when it comes to the costumes and the look of the characters from the comics. And I can understand that for certain properties, but they just did it here, and it worked for me. I mean, I was like, it's Aquaman. I mean, the whole look of the film was just a sheer delight for me, and one of my favorite parts of the viewing experience. But that aside, I mean, yeah, it was not the deepest film. I mean, I think Wonder Woman is still by far the best film of this unfolding DC cinematic universe. Yeah. But it was fun, and they really brought in a lot of the elements of the comic book and its history. And I love Momoa's interpretation of the character. Like, I really enjoy, like Man of Two Worlds and the humor that's there, and just the sheer physical charisma of his performance. So I dug it, and I know it did well, so I'm assuming they're going to make a sequel. Anybody hear anything about that? Or
More than likely. I mean,
Yeah.
I would think at this point. I mean, with what is it? Wonder Woman 1984? Is
yes,
that?
yep.
That's next up on the slate, and there's certainly hasn't been any talk of a Justice League sequel. The Batman movie is kind of dying on the vines. Flash is in turmoil. Nobody's talking about Cyborg anymore, so they're going to have to go with what works. And Aquaman made a ton of money, so it makes perfect sense to make a sequel.
It has crossed the $1 billion mark.
Wow,
Has it really?
yeah,
Well, that's worldwide because I know it did really well in
Yeah.
China, for example.
right.
Oh, that's great. So let's go further. Like, what elements of this movie really worked for you, gentlemen, and what didn't work? Like, what made you cringe in a way that was not, with irony attached to it? So,
I was actually thoroughly impressed with the action of the movie, and I didn't exactly know what to expect because, I mean, with a director like James Wan, who's mainly known for his horror work, like he did Saw and Insidious, and he did do a Furious 7, which was kinetic as hell and completely was ridiculous in ways as well. And he took a lot of those sensibilities. He took a lot of the Fast and the Furious sensibilities here, especially with like the chase scenes that were going on at times, and applied them for the water. And he basically made, and I mean, pardon my French, he made a underwater Black Panther, especially visually, because when you first see Atlantis, that's immediately what came into my head. Like, we're in a forgotten wonderland of a world that could never possibly exist, but it was right under our noses the entire time. And that's what Wakanda was for Black Panther, and that's very much what Atlantis was here. And it's unique in the visuals, and it's also visually stunning in general. It completely enraptured me in that way, and the action and the visuals are 100% what got me for this movie.
and what didn't work for you, Ian?
The writing. And I mean, I'm being a little bit blunt when I say that, but there are some lines in this movie that just fall so completely dead. Like it felt like at times the movie was written by like monkeys with typewriters, like they so on the nose with lines like I must defeat him and things like that. Like it was like you were watching one of the 1960s cartoons.
I was waiting for Tusky the Walrus to show up.
Yes. I mean, come on! We got the frickin' drum playing, and I believe it wasn't an octopus. I think it was a squid. But the squid playing the drums and all that, like they went that crazy. We even got seahorses like that. We needed at least like one more of those call outs. It was clear to me that Jason Momoa was definitely improvising his lines, and nobody else was. and that's why you got like so much more of a natural performance out of Jason Momoa, even if they weren't improvised. He just has that style.
Yes.
And no one else in the movie was playing it that way. So it was very weird. Like it was very, very off-putting at times. But at the same time, there was genuine chemistry between him and Mira.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually really enjoyed Willem Dafoe. I always enjoy Willem Dafoe.
Oh,
but
he's a tremendous actor.
Yeah, but his performance here as Volko was great, even if there are exactly 7 superhero actors and they wind up in every single movie. I'm starting to feel that way. Like, I mean, come on, this movie had Conan, Green Goblin, and Night Owl in it.
That's true.
So go figure. Oh, and Dolph Lundgren. So yeah.
And I was digging seeing Dolph Lundgren on screen.
Yes.
I mean, the month before I'd seen Creed 2, so he returned in that as Ivan Drago, and then to see him again in this film, that was fun. I really enjoyed that. One thing about Momoa's performance that to piggyback on your point, Ian, is that the scene when they're, I think, are they on Sicily? I think.
Yes.
And they're on their quest essentially, and he comes to that so that overlook, and there's statues of various figures from ancient Roman history. And he's saying, well, Scipio wasn't a king, and he was a general. And Mira's like, how do you know all that? And he said, well, my dad learned history. And I was like, okay, that's a really cool moment in the movie, because whoever came up with that scene, because they're acknowledging that, he's not a bonehead, and he's someone who is going to be a king himself. Yeah. And they're showing that, Aquaman Arthur Curry is a person who really of depth, who has a lot of knowledge and gravitas and experience. And I thought it was a quick little scene, but I thought it was really important that they put that in there, and I really appreciate it. Plus, I just love Roman history, but I just appreciated that because they're showing that he's not just some a dude, like he's someone who there's something more to him than just the musculature and so forth.
Yeah.
Murd, how about you? What worked and what didn't?
Well, my likes and dislikes map pretty cleanly on Ian's, I get the feeling. The visuals were the strength and the writing the weakness. So the whole everything with the visual design, the color palette for this underwater world was just dazzling. And the sound, as I mentioned, also these sort of technical things are probably deserving of some kind of award nomination. We'll just wait and see. So I did feel kind of transported and immersed, no pun intended, in this beautiful underwater world. But yeah, the story though was something of a problem. I'm glad that we like Arthur Curry himself were sort of carried along on the fast-paced tides of this story, so fast that we don't get much of a chance to think about the inanity of some of the situations or the unlikeliness of certain turns of events. The whole twin scavenger hunt that Orm is off gathering the approval of the other tribes of Atlantis, and Aquaman and Mira are off on their little romancing the stone-style adventure to find this silly trident that for some reason is going to make everything better. And in the end, it's not so much the trident as the gigantic aqua monster so awkwardly set up by or foreshadowed by a random remark that Orm made back in the Royal Palace of Atlantis that really turns the tide of things. So, yeah, it's that it felt a little to me like it began tonally, like with the adrenaline-addled inanity of like a 90s action movie, like the altercation between Aquaman and Black Manta and Black Manta Senior on board their pirate ship. It was kind of like a Steven Seagal movie, and then it sort of metamorphosed from there into an 80s sci-fi fantasy movie with bits of 2 or 3 other kinds of 80s movie grafted onto it. It's like at this point it's romancing the stone, at this point it's Indiana Jones, at this point it's the Karate Kid, and the list goes on. And the music, which I enjoyed, it was pretty self-consciously emulating music of 80s scores at points. The characters, a lot of them I thought were a little bit on the thin side, with the exception of Aquaman. Ian makes a good point that his dialogue seemed a bit more natural, and he might have been the only one that was allowed to ad-lib his lines. Willem Dafoe as Vulko, this is going to sound kind of silly and superficial, but I would have bought him as the character much more if they could have just given him a few false whiskers to wear. Because to me, Vulko minus beard equals no Vulko, no matter who's playing him.
It's true. Vulko always has a beard. That's a good point, Murd.
So that's one thing I missed. The character of Ocean Master, I agree with you, Chris, that I had kind of a little fangasm moment when he finally put his fin-trimmed metal mask on and said the words Ocean Master. But that
and
character,
it looked good. It actually looked good.
Yeah. I wouldn't have thought that mask would translate so well to film, but it did. But I did think his character came across as flat as a flounder. We needed a little more. Talk about something that needed to be fleshed out a little more. More of his background and his motivations. I mean, we know that he's hungry for power. He wants to become Lord of all Atlantis. He wants to be the Ocean Master, kind of like the undersea emperor. And he wants badly to attack the surface world. And I guess if you read between the lines, it's not too hard to figure out that part of his desire to attack the surface world has its origin in his lifelong feeling of inferiority to his land-born hybrid brother Arthur. But that's not really it's not put on paper, if you will, in the script. It's not put out there as clearly as it should be. He does pay some minimal lip service to, pollution and nuclear energy and whale hunting and stuff. The usual Atlantean beefs with the surface world. They checked all of those off, but it felt like we needed. There are the makings of a good, complex character there, but a lot of the dots were not connected, and a lot more dots needed to be drawn. And, of course, there's probably, as we've said, going to be another Aquaman movie, since this one made $1 billion, so there's plenty of chance for Orm Marius to become a better rounded character in the future. I'm kind of hoping for that. Talking of visuals again, and just thinking about Orm Marius and his own little quest to either cow or cajole the other tribes of Atlantis into joining his cause. I'm thinking about that big battle between Orm's forces and the Brine, led by the voice of John Rhys Davies, when Aquaman shows up with the trident and the giant Kraken monster. But the Brine are, and both the Brine themselves and their crustacean technology is some of the coolest alien beings / alien technology that I've seen on screen. It was extremely toyetic, and I thought to myself, wow, if this movie had come out when I was 5 or 6, I would totally have wanted my own little plastic articulated replica of those crab troop carriers scuttling around down there. That was a really cool scene visually. There were a lot of really cool things visually. It's just that, as I'm trying to get across here, that there's other elements of the story that really left something to be desired. So if you're just going for a visual feast, this movie absolutely delivers, but on the level of narrative, it needed a little bit of beefing up.
Well, there were some great surprises in the cast there as well. I mean, you mentioned John Rhys Davies. I had no idea he was going to be in this, and just hearing his voice in anything. I mean, the first sci-fi show that I ever got into as a kid was Sliders. So he will always be that for me, and of course Indiana Jones and all that. And it's nice to see him in something with some roots to Indiana Jones in the overall plot, which was lovely. But also, Digimon Hansu was in this as well as King Rico. Yep. Was not expecting to hear him. And the same month that a sequel to Mary Poppins comes out, who chooses to be an Aquaman over Mary Poppins Returns but Julie Andrews?
Wait, who was Julie Andrews in this movie?
Julie Andrews was Carathan.
As soon as you said she was in the movie,
I
thought to myself, okay, what character did we not see in the flesh? And the sea monster. I never would have guessed Ian. Thank you. You've just blown my mind.
That was just a fact that I had heard before I went to see the movie. I knew she was in it somehow. I didn't know as what. And then when I saw it, go figure. But the best surprise for me, because I hadn't actually seen him in any of the trailers, but Tamora Morrison as Tom Curry in this, I don't think I've seen him in anything since he was Boba Fett.
Now, I read that Jason Momoa has strong ties to New Zealand.
Yes.
And I believe that he insisted that this actor be in the film.
Well, he was.
What's that?
I'm glad he was.
Yeah, no, I thought he was excellent.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of how they portrayed his mother, as played by Nicole Kidman?
I thought she was excellent in the early scenes, the flashback origin sequence, if you will.
Yes.
It was really hard for me to do anything but roll my eyes at the reveal of her survival, having come through the trench into Skartaris or whatever that was supposed to be, the dinosaur place, mainly because it was just so precisely the same story beat that we got with Michelle Pfeiffer and Ant-Man and the Wasp.
True. I thought the same thing, Murd. Yeah.
Yeah. However, it was great to see her have action roles, because very rarely do you get to see Nicole Kidman fight like that.
True. Very true.
Yeah. I'm sure there were, stunt doubles out the wazoo, but still, she got to cut loose a little bit, which is pretty cool.
One thing I like you gentlemen, a lot of the plot, the writing, some of the characterization, I wouldn't say I was rolling my eyes because I went in with very modest expectations, and I just kind of rolled with all that because, like you said, I was so enjoying the visual aspect of the film and how they clearly really got that aspect of the comic. I love seeing all the different Atlantean tribes and that dynamic and the Atlantean soldiers, their armor, and it looked so good. And I mentioned this earlier in discussion. I could not get over Black Manta.
Yeah.
Like I had this huge grin on my face. I mean, they didn't do much with his character in the movie, really. He was kind of like a secondary villain, so to speak, in this particular story. But I mean, in the teaser at the end, they're setting him up to be more, obviously, in the sequel. But just like when you first saw him, you saw like his minions and the way they looked. They're like, wow, they took this right out of the book. I mean, and you'd think that like his helmet is so big, and they even made a joke about that. He's like, oh, I got to have a bigger helmet. And I thought, okay, how are they going to transfer this to film? Because it may look really goofy. But I was just – now maybe to a non-comic person they kind of found it goofy, but that was one of my favorite experiences of the whole movie, was just seeing how well they nailed the visual for that villain. And just like the eye beams and the whole thing. I mean, it was like that scene where they're fighting on Sicily and chasing over the rooftops, and the one Atlantean soldier has to put his head in the toilet because he can't breathe, and like the action of the movie was really well done.
Oh, yeah.
And as you said, Ian, the other thing I really enjoyed was the chemistry between Mira and Arthur. Like that was for me was in terms of character in the movie. That was one of the highlights for me. And as I said, I really enjoy him as Aquaman. Now, it's not the Super Friends Aquaman. It's not like the, totally grim killing Aquaman, or that maybe that'll come down the road as the burden of the crown weighs more heavily on him. But I so enjoyed him in Justice League. That's one of the highlights for me, and because I consider that film very mediocre. But he brought that same sort of that sense of fun and that spirit, and that. I mean, the guy has tremendous charisma just as an actor, and it really translated in the movie. By the way, Ian, I meant to ask you because I didn't see it. How was he as Conan?
Not great.
Okay,
but then again, I don't really think that was exactly his fault.
Yeah.
I feel like they were that was at the time where they were trying to remake anything and everything under the sun.
Yeah.
And it had a weak script, and it really didn't have the visuals to go along with it. It was a B movie more than anything else.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that because I love Conan. But in fact, later on this episode, I'm going to talk about. I just read Conan the Barbarian #1, the new one. So
nice.
Yeah, but I could watch him as Aquaman all day, and I hope if they do a sequel, which based on the returns is likely, they have him evolve in the role of king. So we can see the impact of that responsibility on him, and I hope they take it in that direction, because if you read the Aquaman comics, especially a lot of the Peter David material, they really get into the political dynamics and intrigue of that world and the kingdom and what he has to deal with. And Jeff Johns did that wonderfully when they did the New 52. It's one of the few New 52 titles I really liked, and. Dan Abnett, the stuff he's been doing is great as well. So there's a lot of great material they can mine for a future movie or two. So I'm excited. Like this, I think if Momoa hadn't given the performance he gave, and if the visuals weren't up to snuff, the movie I probably wouldn't have enjoyed the movie half as much.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you both. Like, for example, with the flashback scene. With Volkel training him on the beach, I thought the teen actor, frankly, was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And that scene felt very flat for me. And plus, it's to be fair to the kid, you're trying to act against Willem Dafoe, so that's gonna be an issue too. But if they can punch up the script going forward a little bit and bring in more of that gravitas, and you still get those types of the level of performance from Momoa, I think you could have a really enjoyable and perhaps even better second film. So
yeah,
and like Murd said, Ocean Master in the comic is a very complex character, and he's one of those characters who he's not always necessarily the complete villain. Like he still feels a loyalty to Atlantis, And I hope they can pursue that further. Which they kind of set that up a little bit there at the end when they take him prisoner and so forth. But
kind of hinting that he's. Well, he doesn't seem to have any kind of grudge as he's led away. Like he feels like he's regained a connection, gained a brother out of this whole thing. So it's like, I guess he feels in some small way gratified.
Well, and that was the thing. One of the things that I appreciated about this movie is that unlike something that happens so very often in Marvel movies, as an example, none of the villains die in this.
Good point, Ian.
That we have time for them to evolve and grow in future movies if they do indeed decide to do so, which they probably will. Because again, $1 billion, it made more money than Justice League internationally. That says a lot. But what I loved, and this is not my own opinion, somebody else pointed this out, I believe, on Twitter, is that I love how in a lot of ways Orn looks like traditional Aquaman, like traditional comic book Aquaman.
That's a good point. Oh yeah,
yeah. He's got the blonde hair, and he's got a very similar build, and then you've got Jason Momoa walking in with his own personal take on the character to change things up. So that was almost, I feel like, a nod to the comics to make Patrick Wilson look the way he did without the mask on.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What did you gentlemen think of the look of the classic Aquaman costume at the end?
I really enjoyed it. I would have enjoyed it a lot more had the poster not given it away. I think that the marketing for this film went a little bit too far. Like, we really didn't need to see it until then. It would have been more of a reveal, and it would have been more of a, oh wow, I didn't actually expect him to go there scenario had I not seen it in all the promotional stills, online and on TV commercials and stuff like that leading up to it. So I enjoyed it, but I would have rather it had been more of a surprise for me.
Ian, you might have a new career as a promotional agent. That's a very valid point. What'd you think of it, Murd?
Well, actually, by that point in the film, I was kind of numb to new stimuli. It involved an orange. I barely even remember what it looked like, but it had an orange shirt, and that's frankly enough for me.
It had
Fair enough. Yes, it did.
The other things I wanted to point out along the lines of what Murd was saying about nods to other movies, the desert scenes had very much a Mummy feel to them, like Brendan Fraser era Mummy. So even going further into like the 90s and stuff like that, like Stargate and Mummy, I was very much getting feels there for, and especially like with the just random diving into the middle of the desert. That was just genuine like treasure hunt fun for me.
Yeah, and Murd mentioned one of my favorite movies, Romancing the Stone, which I just watched again just less than a month ago. All that treasure seeking, fortune seeking type feel was definitely there. I agree 100%.
Yeah,
and I enjoyed that because I grew up with a lot of movies like that. So, and you mentioned Indiana Jones and John Rhys Davies, and you can't go wrong with that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So
may as well throw the Goonies in there while we're at it.
And I'd say probably the most unexpected positive fight scene was Mira utilizing the wine when
that's
they
right
were on the island. That was such a like a good use of liquid as a weapon. Like I was not expecting that, and then suddenly all the bottles burst the way they did, and she uses that to her advantage. That was fantastic.
Well, I think they did a nice job of showing, because you have to assume a lot of the audience really doesn't know anything about Mira.
Yeah, and
I like how they showed how powerful she is. And she's not she's not Aquaman's sidekick, right? She is his partner. I mean, and I really appreciated that visual quite a bit.
Yep.
So that was a lot of fun. Any other comments you guys have of the movie in general?
What'd you guys think about the end scene? I mean, specifically Randall Park, which talking about since you did bring up Ant-Man and the Wasp, like here he is showing up in a Marvel and a DC movie in quick succession. So good for him, since he was in both. What'd you think of the whole Dr. Stephen Shin angle at the end there?
Murd, do you want to speak to that?
I'm aware that the character was introduced by Jeff Johns during his New 52 run on Aquaman. But beyond that, I don't really know much about him from the comics. So apparently he's in this movie, he's an Atlantean conspiracy theory nut. And he's been discredited pretty widely by the mainstream media, and now here he is with a key to the actual kingdom of Atlantis, but he's going to have to make a bargain with the devil to vindicate himself. So yeah, that's what comes of their partnership might be interesting to see in the next movie.
I enjoyed it just because I like how they brought sort of a deeper cut character into the movie. I always enjoy when they do a comic book adaptation and they make nods, subtle or otherwise, to sort of lesser known plot devices or characters or so forth. So I just thought that was fun. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention, I also really appreciated how, unlike Justice League, they allowed the Atlanteans to talk underwater without creating these ridiculous pockets to get into to speak to each other.
Thank God.
Yeah, I wasn't sure why they did it. Maybe because she wanted privacy with him, or because they made it seem like they couldn't communicate unless they were doing that. Which, I just thought that was ridiculous. So I was so relieved they didn't include that feature in this film.
Essentially, almost a day after Justice League came out, James Wan, the director, had to make the statement that, we're not doing that in our movie.
Oh, did he really say that? Okay.
Yeah. Because people were worried, and frankly, so was I. Because that's it seemed like something that Zack Snyder threw in because he wanted to, and didn't necessarily ask whether or not that was actually going to be used in the future. And I'm glad it didn't, because it would have brought the action to a halt.
You couldn't have any kind of interplay between characters. Like, it was great when they went into that pirate ship and they had kind of like that air pocket they were in, but that felt more natural.
Yeah.
In that environment, I was deeply relieved just from a movie viewing perspective. They did not include that, because I remember when I saw Justice League, I was like, "What the hell is this?" I'm like, it just. So that was some fanboy relief. I wiped my brow there when they didn't do that. So
yeah.
I actually want to ask you a couple of questions, because you seem to be a little more in tune than I am.
Sure.
So going forward, DC films now. Is Batman and Ben Affleck not happening at all? Because I remember hearing about that for a while.
It's so hard to keep track, Chris.
Okay.
Because I feel like every other day you hear something else. Last I had heard, it was in limbo again. But every now and then you hear Ben Affleck say, well, I'm still up for it if they want to. And, same with Henry Cavill. Like, Henry Cavill's out, but he's in, but he's out, but he's in. And nothing's actually been confirmed or going forward. The next movie after this, we know is happening because it has been filmed and completed, is Shazam. And after
which I'm immensely looking forward to, by the way.
Yes, same here. After that, it's Wonder Woman 1984. And after that, your guess is as good as mine. I assume Aquaman 2, because there are no plans, last I heard, to do a Justice League 2. And
now, what about, you said Flash was in disarray. What is that all about?
Flash has gone through directors like I go through tissues when I have a cold. There have been so many different people attached to that, and Lord and Miller were attached to it at one point. The guys who did Into the Spider-Verse and were on Solo until they wound up off of it, and they did the Lego Movie as well. There was a script that was written to make it a Flashpoint movie, and then that was thrown out. And last I'd heard, they might be doing it as sort of a reboot. Because if they do incorporate Flashpoint into it, that would be a way to change the actors of Batman and Superman if they so desire.
True.
But that's all pipe dreams at this point. Nothing's confirmed, nothing's official. All we know is what's happening, and that like I said, that's Shazam and Wonder Woman 1984.
All right. Anybody have any other closing comments on the film?
Murd, you want to go first?
I don't really have anything more to say that wouldn't be repeating what we've already said. It's a beautiful movie, and it just leaves plenty of room for improvement as far as actual storytelling when we get around to the sequel.
Yeah. The only other thing that I would say is this movie, along with Wonder Woman, proved that what DC was doing wrong, again, me personally, because trust me, I know there's plenty of people out there who enjoyed the other movies before this. I was not a big fan of them. It's the way it goes. But what I think this movie gets right, and what Wonder Woman got right as well, is embracing its comic book roots.
Absolutely.
And not being afraid to be silly sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to be entirely serious. Like, you can make a serious movie with at least a little bit of levity to it. And that's what we had here. There were moments of serious, and there were moments of silly, and moments of outright ridiculousness. Because how could you not? I mean, or else you would have wound up with the fake Aquaman movie that James Cameron didn't make in the Entourage TV show. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to what comes next. And I think that if they continue making movies of this ilk, then DC might have something going for them. But we'll have to wait and see.
I concur in that. Even in the most serious, darkest moments of, like, the Marvel films, they always find room for humor. And humor is intrinsic to a lot of the Marvel properties, really. But when I go back to the DC films, like, one of my favorite moments in the Justice League movie, which I'm assuming was probably scripted by Joss Whedon, was when Wonder Woman tricks Aquaman with her lasso. And remember, he says all these things that he didn't want to say, and that's a fun moment in the film. And I agree, like, in both Wonder Woman and in this film, you have those moments of levity, and it's so important, because if you're dealing with world-altering stakes in these comic book stories, if it's all grim and gritty, and I mean, there's a place for that. Don't get me wrong, I love grim and gritty, but you can also get really bogged down in that. And, like, for example, I really enjoyed, and I've said this before, much of Man of Steel. I like Henry Cavill as Superman. Having said that, the last, like, 45 minutes of that movie, it was just too much, too dark, too, the term we've often used is disaster porn. And I want to see more of a balance. And I'm going to echo what you gentlemen said. I think this particular franchise, Aquaman, has real potential. I think Momoa is fantastic in the role, and if they can just kind of get the writing up a little bit, maybe it takes a little more time to build up some characterization, it could really have legs. So I was really pleased with it overall.
I also appreciate the accidental kismet of the fact that the last CGS episode before this was a Namor spotlight, and here we are with our Aquaman review.
Ian, that wasn't an accident.
Well done.
Indeed. All right, Jim, what's our freckin' swears? Ian, go ahead.
I'm going to give it a solid 3.5.
Mert?
3 1/4 was what I had in mind.
Ian, you beat me to the punch. I give it a 3.5 as well. So.
All right. Sounds good.
Not bad at all. All right, boys. Let's talk about some comics and stuff in general.
All right, cool.
If you don't mind, I'd like to talk about a couple things I've just read today.
No, go right ahead.
As I mentioned earlier, because I just got my shipment actually today for the month, and I just read Conan the Barbarian #1. Marvel has the property again, so it's the relaunch, although they have legacy numbering, which I also appreciate. And I've been really looking forward to this because it's written by Jason Aaron, who basically was born to write Conan. If you ever read the book The Goddamn, which he did some years back, which is sort of a take on early biblical times, tremendous and very brutal. And so Conan the Barbarian #1, it incorporates both young Conan the Cimmerian, the Reaver, the Slayer, and also Conan the King. So it goes back and forth in time. So it's going to incorporate both elements of the Conan saga there. But when you open the book, the first 2 pages, and I was grinning ear to ear because I love when they show deference to legacy, is a collage of Conan art from throughout Marvel's history. So they have like Barry Windsor Smith, the great John Buscema, Marie Severin, like various people who drew Conan for Marvel. They have a collage, and they're taking you through the history of Conan as it was in Marvel Comics. So that's a great. Once I saw that, I was immediately thrilled. I knew this was going to be in good hands, and Aaron does not disappoint. You know, the obviously the violence. I mean, within a few pages, you see Conan behead 2 men with one stroke of his sword in an arena. But you know, there's sorcery, there's great sword fighting, all the stuff you want in a Conan comic. But it also has the gravitas because Aaron is also taking you back and forth to when Conan later becomes the king of Aquilonia. You can just tell as you go through this issue that he loves this character and his world, and certainly very much in this first issue he does it justice. The art by Mahmoud Asrar is fantastic. Matthew Wilson, beautiful coloring. Travis Lanham lettering. The whole Asad Ribic does the cover. Like, this is a beautifully made book, and you know, I've had to cut down on some titles just because of money, but this is a book I'm going to be staying with. I was really looking forward to this. I've loved Conan since I was a kid, and this is a wonderful addition to the canon. So, highest recommendation there. I also read again today. I'm looking forward to this. Winter Soldier #1 by Kyle Higgins, a writer I've always lauded on this program. Artist Rod, is it Reis? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Well, it's Brazilian Portuguese, so the R often comes out sounding a little bit more like an H, so like Reis.
Murder, leave that into your expert command of accents and linguistics. This was excellent too. I've loved Higgins' work on Cowl, Hadrian's Wall, Nightwing. You know, he's a writer who I think is one of the best in the business. He doesn't get necessarily as much notoriety as others, but this takes you right to where the Winter Soldier is now, and basically he's trying to redeem himself in a sense by helping other people who found themselves in terrible situations, like he's helping like people who've defected from Hydra, for example, to start their lives over. Artwork's beautiful. First issue, strong right out of the gate. You know, they establish, you know, what happened to the Winter Soldier, how he ended up where he is, and why he's trying to make a change that will not only help other people, but also himself in a sense. He tries to find redemption. It's excellent. I have issue 2 here, so I haven't read that yet. By the way, I want to point out that in more recent Marvel comics from the past month, you know, they obviously pay tribute to Stan Lee. They have a black banner on the top, Stan Lee 1922 to 2018. You open the cover, the first 2 pages are black and mourning, and then the 4th page is a beautiful sketch by, I think it's Phil Noto, of Stan Lee grinning behind his sunglasses. So it was great to see that. And what I loved is in the back of the issue they have an old Stan soapbox. Nice. Hang loose, heroes. Oh, I love that hyperbole. Where he kind of lays out in this particular soapbox the Marvel philosophy. It's a great tribute. That I like how they didn't like have someone write an essay. They just left it to Stan himself in his own words. So that's beautifully done. And Murd, the last book I want to talk about that I read today, Thanos: The Infinity Conflict.
Oh yes, latest OGN offering from Jim Starlin.
Yep, and Alan Davis and Mark Farmer. Do you have this yet?
I'm sure I do. I've got kind of a stack of these Thanos, the Infinity blank OGNs that's been piling up back at my apartment.
Okay, I won't spoil anything. All I'll say is, first of all, there's a really fun cartoon introduction by the great Al Milgrom, which is fun. And first of all, it's an Alan Davis, Mark Farmer production, so it's freaking gorgeous to look at. I love them as an artistic team, and without spoiling, it's a continuation of this. Again, Starlin's been doing a whole series of Thanos OGNs in recent years, and what we have here is Thanos in his quest not just to control the universe and to win the favor of death, but now he essentially wants to be the universe. And it's essentially him trying to, through means that I won't spoil, trying to incorporate all the different fundamental personifications of sort of elemental concepts in the Marvel Universe. Murd, you will love this book. Because all those cosmic concepts you love in Marvel, they're all in here. And they're beautifully rendered.
By some of my favorite artists. So, yeah,
yeah.
cannot possibly think that you're incorrect about that, Chris.
Now, I remember one last thing, because I don't want to spoil, but because I remember you mentioning this, because at the end of the book, they say, to be concluded in Thanos, the Infinity ending. Now, wasn't Starlin, though, unhappy with the way Marvel was treating his handling of the property? Didn't he leave?
For a little while there, yes, he was unhappy with Marvel because I think it was something that happened in the Thanos monthly series at the time.
Okay.
Rendered a story idea he had for one of these graphic novels redundant. And he was upset that no editor had warned him about this, or no editor had coordinated with other editors to prevent this from happening in the Thanos Monthly. And anyway, he walked off of the Marvel Comics, saying at the same time that he was angry only at the comics publishing branch, not the filmmaking branch, who were being very good to him financially.
I hope so.
But apparently they found their way past that because these OGNs are continuing to be released.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering, because I was wondering if this was completed before that spat occurred, because I really want to see how he's going to end the story. So, Murd, I look forward to talking about this with you once you've read it. I think you're really going to eat it up. So, and anyone who's a Thanos fan, or if you love Thanos in the comic, definitely pick this up. If you haven't really read much Thanos in the comic universe, but you're really enjoying how they used him in the movies, I highly recommend you get all these OGNs, and of course go further back. Get the classic Bronze Age Thanos stories with Adam Warlock and the Avengers, all of which are in trade now. Of course, the death of Captain Marvel is also essential, but it's a pleasure to see Starlin cutting loose on arguably his most important creation. So, great stuff. That was why I just want to talk a little bit about a couple of books, gentlemen. Please fire away anything else you want to bring to the table.
Well, I've got something for you guys.
Ah!
Oh, it's time once again for Muddle the Murd. I love being at the helm for this because I can do it whenever I want.
Oh, what fun it is to writhe.
The power, he's drunk with power, ladies and gentlemen. It's already gone to his head.
Mwah. Murd, are you ready for some more?
I'm assuming the position now, Ian.
That has some terrible connotations. All right, go ahead.
Well, that is not at all awkward. I will be assuming Robert Christensen's position today. Hello, my fellow geeks. As a long time listener, I hope this email finds you all well as summer comes to a close and we prepare for another beautiful fall season. Let's just take that all in. Being a fellow collegiate professional, I hope that Chris enjoys an enjoyable semester shaping the hearts and minds of a new freshman class. I keep Pants in my thoughts and prayers as his adventures and willingness to bare his soul on the podcast over the years has made him feel like an old friend. I wish Adam and his family well as they prepare for another holiday season that he says fast approaching, but I'll say has passed. But I must keep my my kind words to a minimum as I prepare to do battle and muddle the murd. Really hoping that Simonson Batman is still up for grabs. Well, it's not, but what is up for grabs?
Well, how does Tony Aiken's Wonder Woman sketch grab you, Robert?
Hopefully good. Well, let's see if he gets it. He starts you off, Murd, with a DC pre-1970. In Brave and the Bold, number 85, cover date of September 1969. When the newly voted senator for Gotham City is shot before he can vote on an important anti-crime bill, Bruce Wayne is selected to finish the rest of the senator's term during his recovery so that the crucial deciding vote for the bill can be made. Meanwhile, as Batman, Bruce attempts to find out who was responsible for having the senator shot and along the way teams up with Green Arrow to bring the shooter to justice just in time for Bruce to vote in favor of the crime bill. What was the name of the senator that was shot?
Oh, this sounds an awful lot like a Bob Haney story, but they mostly were in Brave and the Bold in those days. And, I'd be willing to bet I probably have read it, but the name of the senator is not sticking with me. Robert Chalmers.
The answer is Senator Paul Cathcart.
Yeah, I recognize that name now that I hear it. Yes, I have read this story. I must have, but yeah.
The Cathcart Towers Hotel? Sorry, I had to do that.
Why did you have to do that, Chris?
It's Fish Called Wanda. It's one of my all-time favorite films.
That answers the question.
It's a hilarious scene involving the Cathcart Towers Hotel. So if you've seen the movie, people understand. But if not, I highly recommend it. It's one of the greatest comedies ever put to film. So
I absolutely do recognize the name Senator Cathcart now that you're saying it.
And Murd, eerily enough, in my head, before you said it, I thought Robert Chalmers, too. So,
wow. That's peculiar incidents of synchronicity there, Chris.
Indeed. I'm honored.
I thought Super Nintendo Chalmers. All right. Moving on to Marvel, 1970 to 2000, and considering that Mr. Eberly just discussed Conan the Barbarian, we have a Conan the Barbarian question. Issue 16, cover date July 1972. Conan, now a member of an Aesir war party, is just finishing off a band of Vanir in the snowy plains, but soon stumbles and falls due to his injuries. A beautiful, scantily clad maiden appears to him. And of course. And when she tempts him a little too much, he chases her lustily toward the mountains, knowing she might be luring him to an ambush. When her frost giant brothers appear, he swiftly deals with them and continues his chase, finally catching her and prepares to rape her. Okay. She prays to her father, the god, is it pronounced Ymir?
Yeah, Ymir.
Ymir, to save her, and she vanishes in a flash of blue light. Conan collapses and is rescued by his Aesir companions while they don't entirely believe his story, are disquieted with the remnants of a dress Conan holds in his hands. What was the name of the scantily clad maiden?
Oh, boy. And I have even less excuse for this because I just recently, over the summer, read, I think it was a Kurt Busiek and Carrie Nord retelling of this precise story.
Great stuff.
Yes, from the Dark Horse Conan series of the early 2000s. Yes, The Frost Giant's Daughter was the title of the story. And the character,
I have read the story too, Murd. Yeah.
T. Alfie.
Chris, any guesses?
No, I can visualize the woman, but I can't remember her name.
You came very close, Murd, but it's Atali.
Oh, wow.
That's like A-T-A-L-I, or how's that?
A-T-A-L-I, you got it.
That was damn close, Murd. Woo.
That is the firstborn daughter of Ymir. And we move on to post-2000, and this one will be Image from Savage Dragon, issue 202, cover date February 2015. I love how much detail he's put into this. Stripped of his lightning powers, Malcolm Dragon finds that he can no longer rely on the one thing that kept him alive. Now he faces his most fearsome challenge yet, at a time when he's at his most vulnerable. Malcolm Dragon fights the deadly damsels of the Vicious Circle, Raptor, Vane, Samurai, Insect, Tigress, Volcanic, Climax, and Double Page, spelled P-A-I-G-E. That is the best name for a villain ever. Which notable member of the Savage Dragon universe's Vicious Circle meet their demise in this issue?
Well, yeah, I think I'm going to be posting a little something to Robert in the near future here. I'm just trying to remember the name of any Savage Dragon villain. I remember the Vicious Circle well enough. And it's just... okay, I'm going to say the Overlord.
The answer, and another glorious pun of a name, Heavy Flow.
Wasn't that Peter Griffin's lady wrestling name?
I think you may be right. An Eric Larson creation that first appeared in issue 32, whose power set included the ability to control her menstrual blood. She fired powerful blasts of the substance out of her you-know-what. True story.
Yeah, actually, I think it was Peter's sister's wrestling name, and then Peter dressed up as a lady wrestler named Maxie Patty to take her down.
Oh, my God.
Yes, but knowing that doesn't help me in the least. I have been muddled.
He sure has. Wow.
So,
should I be vanquished in my attempt to best Adam, I raise my battle hammer high and salute the all-knowing scribe of thesis of the crisis. Until we meet again on the battlefield, I wish you all well. May your comics be bountiful and your time to read them be plentiful. Robbie in Ohio.
Robbie, great sentiments. Thanks so much. And great questions.
I lay my broadsword at your feet, Robbie. I mean, I came this close to one or two of them, but by golly, it was just more than I could handle in the end. So, I'm afraid it's a little late for that Simonson Batman, but hopefully this Wonder Woman drawing will be a nice consolation prize. And I'm happy to add that we actually found our remaining supply of prize art from our esteemed anonymous listener who sends donations in to be used as prizes. So if I'd been muddled the last time we did this, I would have had to improvise somehow, but now I've got some actual artwork that I can send, so any of you out there who are interested in competing in this Muddle the Murd trivia competition we do from time to time, please send your submissions, consisting of 3 questions, 1 Marvel, 1 DC, and 1 Independent, also broken down by timeline as pre-1970, between 1970 and 2000, and post-2000, respectively. And just email them all to comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. And don't forget to provide the answers for these questions as well, because 1 or 2 people have in the past forgotten to do that.
Very good, very good.
All right.
Okay.
What else is on your docket, gentlemen?
Well, I got a few things.
Please.
So, first off, have you all read Young Justice #1?
I have not read it yet. I apologize.
I have.
All right, great.
You guys can talk about it. Spoil it away. It's fine with me.
All right. Well, I read it. I read it tonight. It was the first single issue of a comic that I bought in over a year at the comic shop.
Wow.
I went to Forbidden Planet shortly after work yesterday in Manhattan, right before catching a movie, and I got it. I had to get the cover that followed that lovely internet meme. The meme is of a guy turning around from his girlfriend to look at the butt of a girl walking by, and the girlfriend's looking on all shocked. Only this one is Connor Superman walking by, a girl catching his turning around and catching his butt as he walks by, and the boyfriend being aghast. Huh. It's a fantastic image. I couldn't resist it, and it came with a digital copy, so why not? But I read that earlier today. It is Bendis' take on the world of Young Justice with art by the amazing Patrick Gleason, and I could not be happier. Anyone who's ever heard me speak knows that I'm a huge Young Justice fan. So it's not a surprise for me to say that I am very happy to have them back. No, I have not watched the animated series yet. I have not given DC's universe my money, but chances are once the season is complete, I will go ahead and do so. But this first issue captures their voices pretty well. I was worried about that a little bit since Bendis comics tend to have a very Bendis voice. Along the lines of, like people sitting around a table and having conversation. And that doesn't always work, especially with youngsters, even though he's written, Miles Morales for years and a young Peter Parker for years in the Ultimate Universe. I was a little bit worried, and he manages to capture their voices very decently in this. Not quite Peter David level, but I'd say we're introduced to Cassie Sandsmark for the first time in years as Wonder Girl since, I believe, the end of the original New 52 Teen Titans. We haven't seen her. And she's in Manhattan starting a job and going to college. And Tim Drake is there as well, without the second R in his costume and referring to himself as Robin. So clearly I missed something, because last I checked he was still running around as Red Robin in Detective, but I haven't read those in a while, so I'm clearly need to catch up to find out exactly what happened to lead him to start calling himself Robin again. Frankly, I'm happy because that extra R did nothing for me. He was still Robin, and he still dressed like him, so whatever. But we're treated to not only Young Justice, but we get a lot of Gem World in this. We get the introduction of a teenage Green Lantern called Teen Lantern, which is interesting, and I wonder where that's exactly going to go here. We've got the daughter of Jonah Hex, Ginny Hex, showing up from Texas as one of the soon-to-be members of the team. And Bart Allen Impulse who is back in town, and he seems to know a lot more than he should, which means I definitely need to catch up on my Flash, because it feels like he's almost like Deadpool-esque in his knowing about the universe things that other people should not. I feel like he may actually know things about the previous universe along the lines of what Wally did when he first.
Interesting.
Especially with the reveal at the end of this issue, which again, I might as well go ahead and say that there are spoilers in this, since I've been spoiling enough, that Con-El shows up at the end of this, clone Superboy, and he has a scruffy beard, and he looks like he's definitely been dealing with something for a while, as he's certainly aged. And that's something that Superboy does not really do. But he looks like he's probably aged maybe 2 or 3 years since the last time we saw him. But he knows who Bart is, and Bart definitely knows who he is. And Tim does too, or at least he says at one point, like, it's not Young Justice without Connor. And I need to catch up on my detective, because last I checked, he still had no idea who Connor Kent was. Because I know that there was an issue where a future version of Tim comes back and mentions Connor, and Tim is like, who's Connor? So clearly something happened, or I'm missing something. But the thing that I definitely want to hear Adam discuss is earlier on in this issue, they mentioned that there have been 7 crises in the history of the DC universe, all of which are related to Earth. And that's the reason why, whenever changes happen, we can all go back to one of these crises as one of the reasons why this change occurred. And it's one of the reasons why people from Gem World appear to be showing up on Earth, and why this major conflict is occurring, and why this gathering of people winds up happening the way it did. I love the art. Writing's on par. I am definitely going to be picking up more of this. Welcome back, Young Justice. I missed you so. And Mr. Murd.
Well, I had probably even more questions than you had, Ian, as far as who should remember what, which versions of certain characters should still be in continuity and remembered by other characters or shouldn't be. I think I'm even further out of the loop than you are there, and so yeah, but I do have kind of a sneaking suspicion, though, that the answers to these questions will not be easily had simply by going back and reading recent DC releases.
You're probably right. You
said something happened in recent comics that led to this configuration of continuity. I think what happened was DC hired Bendis. And Bendis didn't feel like pushing the chess pieces around, or even doing his research to know where those chess pieces had been on the chessboard prior to this. I think this is going to be just kind of... the whole Wonder Comics imprint is supposed to be kind of semi-in continuity, which is really a way you could describe most DC comics at this point. I don't think there are that many people at DC who really know or care what's in canon and what isn't right now. And they just keep making things more complicated with little soft reboots going up here and there. DC Rebirth being one signal example. But yeah, all that aside, so this comic, those first 2 pages to which you alluded there, Ian, held me spellbound. We open with a speaker in the extra-dimensional realm of the Gem World talking to the being who was sort of the big bad of the original Amethyst Princess of Gemworld series, Dark Opal, and explaining to him all this stuff about Earth crises. And apparently Gemworld has been suffering some pretty serious, catastrophic level setbacks, for which they've been at a loss to explain. And Dark Opal himself seems to be practically catatonic with despair. And here's this person lecturing him about Earth crises and how there have been 7 such things that happen to reconfigure reality in the Earth dimension. And every time that happens, even those existential planes that abut the Earth dimension, even though they shouldn't really be affected, nonetheless are. And their reality is shifted and twisted and folded and spindled in strange and unsettling ways. And whatever problems they're having on Gemworld, this speaker concludes, can probably be tied back to Earth, which is also where the speaker is from, he mentions. And the second page is just an extreme close-up drawn by Pat Gleason of Dark Opal's blue and black mottled puss suddenly coming to life and saying the single word, Earth. And then, as far as what those 7 crises are, I mean, I don't know if Bendis has done the actual math here, or if he just picked the number 7 out of a hat. But I can name off at least like 5 of them off the top of my head. The original Crisis and Infinite Earths, of course, 0 Hour, Infinite Crisis, Final Crisis, and probably Flashpoint. As far as the other 2... jury is out.
Multiversity, perhaps?
What was that?
Multiversity, perhaps? Or there was also wasn't there also a Justice League event involving the Anti-Monitor somewhat recently that Jeff Johns wrote?
Oh, right. The whole... I can't even remember what it's called now, but yeah, it involved the Crime Syndicate of Earth 3. It had the Monitor versus the Anti-Monitor versus Darkseid. I don't know if that was quite big enough.
Darkseid 4?
That could be. I mean, Shane and I were talking that story up quite a bit when it was happening, and now I can't even remember what it was called. It doesn't bode well for future muddles, I'm afraid. Yeah, but okay, so the story progresses from there, and the various members of Young Justice, one by one, kind of happen to turn up together at the same place on the same day when emissaries of the Gemworld show up with hostility on their minds and demand to speak to Superman for reasons that they don't bother to explain either to the bystanders or to the reader, but presumably to demand accountability from Earth about all these crises that have happened and look into the possibility of maybe undoing a couple of them. And the story was a little bit of a turnoff for me in terms of its jaggedly uneven structure and pacing. It was just kind of a lot of weird things happening with not a whole lot to tie them together or explain them. I felt a little bit at sea as a reader, honestly. I will give Bendis credit for injecting plenty of youthful verve and energy and bravado into this. Yeah. I'll agree with you, Ian, that my fears were put to rest by the way Bendis characterized these young heroes. They seem to be more or less in character. They didn't just assume that that lengthy, rambling guy sitting around a smoky poker table, Bendis one-size-fit-all univoice. They talked like different people, and they talked like young people. And as you said, his experience writing not only Miles Morales and young Ultimate Peter Parker, but also the all-new X-Men from a couple of years ago. Bendis' skill set has expanded considerably, and he's learned to write in more than one voice and more than one style. I have to give him credit for how far he's come. His style, as far as character voices, didn't turn me off at all. It was just kind of the structuring of the plot and the sort of the odd cadence with which the story beats occurred. It was all just kind of chaotic. I mean, one could argue that it's the chaos of the story is kind of a structural metaphor for the upheavals occurring within the lives of young people, such as the young characters that make up the Young Justice roster, but I don't know if I'd buy that even if you made that argument. To me, it was just kind of a mess of a story. The characters, though, were there and on point, as we've said, and it was nice to see Bart as Impulse. I don't know if, as you said, Ian, he's been hanging around the Flash series. And I like you, I picked up on the meta-awareness he seemed to be displaying. About how he keeps saying it's happening, it's totally happening. And I'm wondering what's happening. Is it just the reuniting of this Young Justice team, the reunion of a team that has yet to exist in this version of reality and that you somehow remember? Or are you talking about something bigger? Or are you, when you say it's finally happening, are you saying, Bart, that perhaps this post-Flashpoint reality is finally unraveling and we'll get back to where we were before Flashpoint happened with the old DC reality? They keep teasing us with that. Yeah. I'm probably just reading more into it than I ought to be. But yeah, and the fact that he then finds his way into the various characters find their way into the Gem world. Robin finds himself face to face with the post-Flashpoint version of Amethyst herself, who's going to be a member of the team. Bart, as you said, Ian, finds his way to Con-El, wherever he's been all this time, and I do. They're calling him Connor, but when I see him in that costume, which is his '90s outfit, with the fade cut, the disco belts, the leather jacket, and everything, I kind of have to take another further step back and call him Con-El, because Connor was a name that he acquired around the time Jeff Johns started writing the Teen Titans series, along about 2003, 2004, and when he. Connor kind of developed a different, moodier personality from what he'd exhibited in his solo days as Superboy and during the time period when he was a part of the first Young Justice. But yeah, Bendis seems to be just kind of setting the clock back to happier, more exuberant times here. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that, because what I've seen done with young hero characters in the post-Flashpoint DC universe, as helmed by other writers like Scott Lobdell, has kind of left me cold. So whether it makes sense for the current continuity or not, I'm kind of glad to see things going roughly in the direction they're going. As far as the new characters, Ginny Hex shows a lot of promise. Are you sure that she's Jonah Hex's daughter, though, Ian?
It may be. I may just be reading into things, but she mentioned something about her father, so I just sort of made an assumption there.
Well, yeah, I'm sure her father is a member of the Hex bloodline. I was just kind of assuming that. And, of course, Jonah Hex has been known to time travel a little bit, so maybe he did do a stint in the 21st century and sire some children there before returning to his native 19th to die as history prescribes. But
right.
It could be that she's like Hex's great-granddaughter, too. And the father to whom she alludes is just Hex's grandson, another member of the same bloodline.
Possibility.
But yeah, whatever. However, she's related to the original. It's almost guaranteed that she's related to him in some way. And to see kind of a modern day Texas girl living up to this Wild West bounty hunter forebear of hers will be interesting. Teen Lantern jury is very much out. Another one of the shortcomings of this first issue, as far as plot structure, is the introduction of the various characters. Teen Lantern just kind of gets spit into a panel at some point and says, "Hey, I'm new. This is nuts. I'm here." And I don't think we even really get to see her face. She's inside of whatever kind of ring construct she's wielding the whole time. And that character kind of has me scratching my head, because it's long been... a question among fandom has always been, why did Green Lantern avoid the trend of junior partners that seem to be a part of the Silver Age Renaissance at DC Comics? We had Kid Flash, we had Wonder Girl, we had Aqualad. Why did Green Lantern never have a partner? And that hypothetical junior sidekick Green Lantern is often given the placeholder name Teen Lantern in fanish discussions. And here's Bendis kind of leaning into that and bringing this character in out of nowhere, pretty much just because he's Bendis and he can. He likes to do things that Bendis can do, for no other reason than that. So, yeah, finding out what this character's background might be interesting, or it might just be silly. I don't know. But it would have been nice if she had gotten a little bit more play here in this first issue. It's just part of the unevenness of it. So you're getting the impression that while I like what he did with the characters, I didn't necessarily like the story he concocted to try and put them all out there all at once.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm not as big a fan of Young Justice as you are, Ian, but I don't think very many people are as big a fan of Young Justice as you are. But I have close to a complete run. I loved what Peter David and Todd Nauck did with the characters back then. I have a soft spot for them myself. And I think there are far worse creators to reintroduce them to a contemporary young reading audience than Bendis. I don't know if I'm going to have the patience to follow along with Bendis for as many issues as it may take him to get these characters into roadworthy condition, as it were. I didn't think this first issue was really that great story-wise. Tonally, it was very good. Character-wise, I have hope. But I may need to wait until this first arc is over and done with before I start reading it on a monthly basis. Let's put it that way.
Fair enough. And to answer your question about Impulse, he came back at the end of the Flash War that happened recently over in the pages of Flash. There was a whole thing going on. I didn't read the story itself. I just heard from other parties that at the conclusion of that, there's a. I think it was Wally trying to get his family back, if I remember correctly. And instead of that happening, Bart winds up coming through a wormhole of sorts, and he's back in the DC universe.
And he appears to have memories of the pre-Flashpoint continuity.
I would assume from this issue that that's exactly what's going on, but your guess is as good as mine. I got some comics to read.
Yes. Yeah, I'm right there with you there, Ian. And then some. Yeah, but it does seem to me like he's kind of stepping into the role that Wally had until he he became indisposed as a result of events elsewhere in the DC universe.
Yeah.
Shall we say that? So now Impulse is assuming that role of lifeline to the hopefully temporarily defunct pre-Flashpoint DC continuity.
Hopefully.
Well, considering how much I love the original Young Justice, you gentlemen have more than ever excited me to read this issue. And Ian, I apologize, I just didn't get a chance to read that copy you graciously sent along, but I'll be looking forward to that.
No problemo. Other comics I got to over the last couple of days. I actually started after seeing Into the Spider-Verse. I was very much in a Spider-Man mood, so I started reading the Spider-Geddon crossover, which is the sequel to Spider-Verse that Marvel has been putting. It was a story that Dan Slott helped create, but Christos Gage is the main writer of the series. And it had a couple of tie-in issues as well. They did an Edge, just like they did with Edge of Spider-Verse. And this one includes the punk Spider-Man. And we also got another story with SP//DER that showed up in the movie, plus a couple of other Spider-Men that we hadn't seen before. But the issue in particular that really caught my eye was Spider-Geddon number 0. And the reason for that is because I got a chance to play through the first, I'd say maybe the first 30, 35 minutes of the Spider-Man PlayStation 4 game over the holiday break. A friend of mine wound up getting it, and I was over at their place, so I wound up playing through the first mission, essentially, which included a battle against Kingpin. He seems to be everywhere with Spider-Man these days. But the game itself, the way that Into the Spider-Verse is like it creates the perfect comic book world. This is like bringing the comic book world into the real world. It is so picture perfect, gorgeous in its realism that you feel like you are Spider-Man swinging through the streets of New York. And items that they were unable to secure the rights to, they put their own Marvel flair on. Like instead of the Bull by Wall Street, it's a statue of Lockjaw. So that's pretty fun. They couldn't get the rights to the One World Trade, so they have a stand-in, but it looks enough like it where you don't really. Plus, there's a couple other changes here and there, like Avengers Tower is in the skyline, and a couple of other fun little Easter eggs thrown in from here and there. But issue 0 of Spider-Geddon actually introduces the Spider-Man from the Spider-Man game into the comic books, and it's our first time we get to see this character. It's actually, from the looks of things, directly after the events of the game. Because they do reference things that happened in that, where basically the superior Spider-Man, Doc Ock, is going to recruit this Spider-Man into the war against the those that they're battling in Spider-Verse. Of course, now I can't think of their names. Something like the Intruders or something like that.
The Enforcers?
No. The actual villains of the Spider-Verse event.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it was either the Incumbents or the Intruders or something like that. Morlun was one of them. The often maligned villain from the other from J. Michael Straczynski's run.
Yep.
Wound up being reintroduced, and he has a whole spider family that he's dealing with, and they're basically all trying to eat all of the Spider-Man for sustenance. That's basically the plot of the original Spider-Verse crossover. And this has Doc Ock, Superior Spider-Man, trying to get the game version of Spider-Man to help him out. In this world, Mary Jane is a Lois Lane type. She works at a newspaper. J. Jonah Jameson has a podcast. It's hilarious. But probably the biggest difference is that there was almost a mentor situation between Spider-Man and Otto Octavius. And you get to see that unfold throughout the game itself. So it's very interesting, to say the least, to see Superior Spider-Man Doc Ock, going back and forth in conversation with a Spider-Man who just essentially, quote unquote, lost his Otto Octavius, which is interesting. And the art itself is very realistic and beautiful. Clayton Crane is the artist on this. And I don't know if I'd ever seen his stuff before, but I certainly want to see more of it with the color artist of Israel Silva, adding some really, really good stuff. Sorry, he was the colorist in the second part, but it was just Clayton Crane doing art as a whole in this one. But I really enjoyed it, and it's nice to see that character introduced into the Spider-Verse in general. Spider-Geddon itself takes place mainly because as the Superior Octopus, after the events of Dan Slott's run, he has a unlimited supply of clone bodies, and he's using the tech that the Inheritors, that's what their name. I was thinking of that for forever. That the Inheritors use to keep themselves alive. Basically, Otto is using now, combined with the Jackal's technology and his own technology, and he accidentally signals the Inheritors to return, and that's what gathers all the spiders together again. It's interesting so far. It's not like, it doesn't feel like a forced sequel the way, say, Civil War II did. And it's fun enough, but I need to read more of the crossover. I'm only 2 issues in at this point, and it's still going on. So plenty of stuff to read there, spider-wise. But at least I got to read some of it.
Outstanding, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, Clayton Crane did artwork for a Rye series that Valiant did a little while ago. And it looked fantastic there, so I know just what kind of beautiful realism you're talking about.
Yep, definitely.
Well, actually, I'm just going to stand right on your shoulders here, Ian, since the one comic book, recent released comic book that I read, other than Young Justice, that I was going to bring to the table is very closely related to Spider-Geddon. And that is the recently begun Superior Spider-Man monthly comic that Marvel is now publishing. Also written by Christos N. Gage, who, as you said, is the architect of Spider-Geddon. So he's kind of charting the life course of Otto Octavius in the Marvel Universe right now. There was a Superior Octopus one-shot a little while ago, which is kind of like the 0 issue for the ongoing Superior Spider-Man. And then there was also a Superior Spider-Man #1 that came out just this past month, which is being drawn by Mike Hawthorne with inks by Starman inker Wade von Grawbadger. So the thing with Dr. Octopus, Otto Octavius now is, as Ian says, he's got access to the Jackal's Pyramid International, whatever his company was called, cloning technology. And he has cloned himself a body, which, similar to Connell's, actually, is this sort of impossible alloy of the genetic material of 2 male mortal foes. His body is now a combination of his own genetic material and Peter Parker's spider-powered DNA. So he's kind of a hybrid of himself and Spidey, and he calls himself Professor Elliot Tolliver, and he has done what so many other Marvel characters before him have done when they needed to gain a new lease on life and spin off from their current situation. He moved west and ended up in beautiful San Francisco. So there he is. He's got a teaching position at an accelerated curriculum university called Horizon University. He's lecturing there. And in his new identity, he's also... he was Superior Octopus for a while, but the Superior Octopus one-shot revealed that there's still a lot of bad connections to that name from the Secret Empire event when Otto Octavius was working with Hydra. So he then adopts that identity and becomes Superior Spider-Man once again. And so he's setting himself up there. A lot of his supporting cast has followed him out there. The genius little person scientist Anna Marie... I can't think of her last name. It was Italian. It
was very Italian, yeah.
And she fell in love with him, didn't she?
Yes, they were lovers.
Yeah.
But she learned something about what Octavius's real plans were, and he sacrificed himself to save her life, but in a way that she considered selfish and churlish. She is no longer pro-Octavius. She, being a genius in her own right, figures out almost immediately that Professor Elliot Tolliver is actually Otto Octavius in a new clone body, and she threatens to turn him over to the authorities. She's brought the living brain back with her, too. That classic relic of the very early Amazing Spider-Man comics. Yep, he's there as well.
Marconi is her last name.
Thank you, Ian. I knew it was something Italian and something science-related. So, same as the famous inventor of the radio. Dr. Octopus has... what's really gotten me hooked into this series is that Christos N. Gage seems to share our weakness for B, C, and D-list characters. And he's brought back one of my all-time favorite villain teams, the Night Shift. Who used to fight the West Coast Avengers. It's basically a bunch of old Spider-Woman villains and a few other surprise odds and ends thrown in. The standout character here is Digger, who was actually a Marvel horror comic host.
Digger.
Right, exactly. He was the Crypt Keeper figure hosting the Tales of...
Tower of Shadows.
Exactly. Yes.
Yep.
Excellent, Chris. You don't get muddled today. So he's there, and he's spitting out all these macabre... terrible, gory puns, and his own teammates are constantly telling him to shut up.
Are the brothers Grimm in that team?
Yes, they are, and they
yeah.
appear in the Superior Octopus. So yes, Octavius puts these villains on retainer, and it makes them his shadow cabinet, if you will. His underlings. They're going to continue pretending to be criminals, but they're actually going to be on his retainer and help him to battle crime. And just having them along as supporting characters is enough to guarantee my $3.99 to Marvel on a monthly basis for this series. And N-Gage is Christos N-Gage has got some other interesting plot twists in mind here. At the end of the first issue, we see that Superior Spider-Man is going to have to battle a Herald of Galactus, which is no mean feat in itself. This is going to be one of those little sort of B-tier supporting character Marvel series that I tend to like to collect and champion, as I have done with a couple of different Scarlet Spider series in the past, including the recently concluded Peter David one, which I was sorry to see go, and like the Jerry Conway Carnage series from a few years before that. So this is the latest in a series of Spider family titles that I'm deciding to seize on in lieu of reading a comic book about the actual Spider-Man. And I think it's going to be a fun ride from what we've seen so far. And it's probably going to cross over pretty closely, I would think, with the Spider-Geddon event that you were telling us about a few minutes ago, Ian.
Yeah. I read Superior Octopus and actually really enjoyed it. So I'm definitely going to have to pick up Superior Spider-Man and see how it is. Because even that Superior, the supporting cast, a lot of that is just basically Dan Slott's supporting cast located to San Francisco, and it's nice to see that they haven't been forgotten, even as a new writer takes over the main Spider-Man title. So,
no, I'm sorry, Ian, go ahead.
No, I was basically done.
And I also wanted to mention the Superior Spider-Man, the original Slott run, was outstanding. It really was. I think it's one of the strongest Spider-Man series, of let's say this decade. If a listener are interested in Spider-Man, and you haven't read that series, I highly recommend it. It was outstanding.
That's really.
And Otto Octavius was one of the top tier Spider-Man villains, and he really takes that character some interesting new directions. It's wonderful.
Well, from what I've been hearing about the Superior Spider-Man run is that in a similar fashion of the way that he was using using criminals to his behest, I think he's going to be essentially using Hydra in that way to basically try and use them as his foot soldiers. So that could be pretty interesting, considering what happened in the Superior Octopus issue, where they try to attack him and basically try to get him to continue to work for them the way that he did during the Secret Empire. So you never know what's going to happen that way.
All right. One other thing. May I spat about something for a moment, gentlemen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Kind of a flashback. I recently acquired the bulk in trade of the classic DC Vertigo series Sandman Mystery Theater, which I read for much of its original run. And I've talked on the air on occasion over the years how I consider this one of the great finite series, and I'm just very excited I'm going to read the whole series again. I haven't read it, since it ended. I think that was 1999, maybe something like that. So if you love noir, if you love Golden Age, but you want to see the Golden Age addressed in like the seamier underbelly of the Golden Age, this is one of the best, certainly one of the best Vertigo series I think I've ever produced, and for me, it's one of the best. Let's say one of the best. I mean, he's a superhero quote, but it's so much more than that. And it's Matt Wagner and Steven Seagal and Guy Davis. This is pretty much from beginning to end. This is essentially a perfect series for me. So I'm really looking forward to returning to it and giving it another read.
Did you get it in trade or in singles?
Trade. Danielle and Bill wanted to winnow down some of their trades, and I helped them sell a bunch to a comic book dealer friend of mine, and I bought separately from them. They had volumes 2 through 7, so I'm going to pick up the rest wherever I can find them and have the complete run, because I've never owned the complete run, even though I read it through the years. It's a masterpiece. So
very nice.
Looking forward to it. What else, gentlemen? Anything?
I've got some media stuff that I got to watch recently that I want to touch on real quick.
Please.
I got a chance the other day to check out the pre-premiere, as it's not actually out here in the States yet, of the new Dragon Ball Super movie that's being released next week in theaters as part of a Fathom Events. In fact, it might even be further than a Fathom event, because this time 20th Century Fox is dealing with the distribution for it. But it's called Dragon Ball Super Broly. And it's actually the first time that the character Broly is a character that was introduced years ago in a Dragon Ball Z movie. And the thing about the Dragon Ball Z movies, for anybody who's unaware, is that they're sort of like side continuity. Like they basically place them in between arcs of the show. And even the creator of the series, Akira Toriyama, has said that they're not really in continuity, that they're more like a side universe. Like if you want to, put it that way, like I had nothing to do with this. This is, that story. So one of the most popular characters to come out of those films, in fact, there were, I think, 3 films that had to do with him, was Broly. He was essentially the Incredible Hulk as a Saiyan. Very powerful, very simple-minded, and almost like a weapon you could point in the direction of Goku and Vegeta. And here we have a movie that acts as a continuation to the series that recently ended, Dragon Ball Super. And it's essentially retelling the story of Broly, only with a lot more nuance and personality. And they have an hour and a half to work with. I think it's an hour and 41 minutes total. And in doing so, they actually breathe life into the character of Broly, and he's more than just a monstrous, simple-minded Saiyan. He actually has some real heart to him. and you get a feeling that some really bad things have happened in his life. Like, he was literally sent to a far off, distant world because the king of the Saiyans realized he was more powerful than his son. So rather than have to deal with him, he just shunned him off to a world to die. And his father ran after him in a pod to ensure his safety. And the thing about Broly is that all Saiyans have tails. And any Saiyan with a tail, if they stare at the moon long enough, a full moon long enough, they will transform into this giant ape-like beast. Mm-hmm. And the thing about Broly is that even when his tail is not there, he can basically channel the power of the ape-like beast without actually transforming into one. And it gives him this green aura around him, because pretty much everything in Dragon Ball is, when it comes to Saiyans, are food puns. So Broly is broccoli, so of course she's green. Huh. It's a really gorgeously executed movie when it comes to a combination of computer effects with traditional animation. The actual fight scenes are very well choreographed, and it's nice to see a franchise like Dragon Ball continuing. Because for years there really wasn't anything to be heard from until the anniversary happened a few years back, and then they decided to revive it for this new series. And Dragon Ball Super Broly did a really good job of continuing the story, and it has me intrigued on what's coming next, especially with the popularity of the fighting game that's out in the video game universe, Dragon Ball FighterZ, having more people interested in Dragon Ball than possibly ever before. So it was a good time, and it's nice to see a movie for free. And afterwards, there was even free bowling, thanks to Funimation. So that was good times to be had there. And I also yesterday got a chance to see Bumblebee in theaters.
Oh, how was that?
So I would describe Bumblebee as if John Hughes did a Transformers movie.
Oh, wow. That's high praise as far as I'm concerned.
The story, it's not much of a spoiler to say this, but the story is actually set in the past. It's set in the year 1987. And with the combination of the music they use and the tone that they have, they capture that beautifully. The Transformers actually look like the Transformers. The Transformers actually act like the Transformers. The Decepticons are the Decepticons. And they just simplify things so well that it's hard to believe we had to go through, 5 movies, I think, before we got to something this simple and this to the point of the characters.
So without spoiling, would you say this is the best Transformers movie?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
All right.
Way less Michael Bay explosions because there's no Michael Bay to be had. And I'd say that they could very easily wind up doing a first class with this and just continue to just base movies before the first movie in order to get around it if they really wanted to. I don't know what they're going to do, but this movie did well enough where I wouldn't be surprised if there's sequels. And it was also great to see Bumblebee running around as a VW bug for the first time in a while. So it was good times.
Great. I want to compliment you, sir. You give outstanding critiques.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, my friend. Well done. So this movie is it's in the same universe as the Bay Transformer films, then? Yes.
Okay. Especially with by the time the movie's over, you're definitely seeing the at least some of the aspects of the Bay movies being introduced. I won't spoil anything in that aspect, but what I will say though is that they're 100% setting up the Transformers using Earth as a base. And I want to see where that goes in future movies, whether or not they have just, whether they base it on just one Transformer in the future, or whether they base it just, Transformers Origins or something like that as the next one. Because there are Cybertron scenes in this, again, not a spoiler, that are beautifully executed. And
oh, wow.
I'm very thrilled that, of course, Peter Cullen is once again the voice of Optimus Prime in this movie. So can't beat that.
So I only saw the first Transformers film.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, was fun, but, wasn't earth-shaking for me. I mean, how are the rest of those movies? Because I didn't watch any of them.
The second one is horrible.
Okay.
And I mean, there's very little you can say to that. I mean, basically the only good thing about the second one is the fact that like some of the voices that showed up in it are good, but that's about it. The third one I actually enjoyed a lot more, but after that I basically dropped off.
Okay.
Because I think there were 2 more after that, if I remember correctly, and that was when they changed the cast over, and oh yeah, right. Leonard Nimoy was a voice in the second one. That was the one thing that I actually enjoyed about Revenge.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, I believe he was the voice of Unicron, if I remember correctly.
Oh.
Which again should have been great, but that was like the best part. Rest of the movies are so. This one is light years above any of the other ones. Period.
All right.
Very
high praise, my friend. High praise.
Yep. And I got one more for you. I started season 2 of Runaways.
Okay, let me ask you this, because I just got a month or so ago, I got Hulu because they're doing $1 a month for a year. So I said, I'm going to get it because they're going to have Veronica Mars on it eventually. Plus, I can watch the Crisis episodes that were done. That's on there, for example. I haven't watched those yet. How was the first season of Runaways? I've heard different things about it from different people. So, what's your spoiler-free take on it?
My spoiler-free take on it, and trust me, this is not a spoiler. By the time we get to season 2, they've actually finally run away.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because season 1 was actually really good at building the characters of both the Runaways themselves and their parents.
Because one person told me they thought the first season was very slow.
It is. It's very slow moving. Season 2 moves a little bit faster, and it also, at least from what I've seen so far, introduces characters that I wasn't actually expecting to see introduced in it, like side characters that happened during Brian K. Vaughan's run that
cool.
actually have more of a full-fledged reasoning for being there. They redesign one of the characters into something that's a little bit more associated with Molly, and also as a potential, is he a runaway or does he have ulterior motives? That's the scenario. We also get, and again, not a spoiler to say, at least in my opinion, hopefully it isn't for you, Zavin gets introduced in this.
Oh, cool. That's fine.
Yeah.
Great.
And I won't say exactly what they do with him, but what I will say is that he's not a Skrull, because they couldn't.
Okay. Right. So the first season is worth watching, in your opinion?
First season is worth watching to get to the second season. There's definitely enough character building to get you through it.
Okay.
But I will say it is a little bit slow at times.
I mean, I'm a patient viewer. As long as it's well written, I'll stay with a show I'm getting something out of. I mean, I saw stills. Visually, the characters look amazing. I mean, they look like they come right out of the comic, essentially.
Yes, absolutely, and even more so in the second season.
Okay.
I'm getting way more into it now in the second season than I was in the first. I'll definitely say that.
I appreciate that, because I mean, the Vaughn Runaways I think is a classic.
Oh,
so, yeah. I'll try to fit that in at some point.
Yep. Good times.
Right. Great media report for me and Levenstein, ladies and gentlemen.
I got too much time on my hands, and I watch too much stuff.
Murray, anything else you wanted to bring up for this episode?
I don't believe so, Chris.
Have we shot our bolt, gentlemen?
If the bolt has been shot, the bolt has been shot.
Well, as always, it's been an honor, my friends.
Happy to be here.
Indeed.
Happy to have you, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Boys. Happy New Year again.
Same to you. Murray, do you want to take us out, brother?
All right, sounds like it's all over but the plugging. This episode of Comic Geek Speak was brought to us by the Collection Drawer Company and their fine product, the Drawer Box, the easy-access comic storage system. Visit collectiondrawer.com to find out how they can help you bring your collection under control. If you'd like to send us an email, our address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can call 267-702-6642. You can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Twitter, where our handle is @comicgeekspeak. You can visit thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com, which is our forum site, where you can talk back about this and many other episodes of our show, and also engage in conversations with your fellow CGS listeners and posters on a variety of geeky topics, whether related to this show or not. We would like to give special thanks to those of you who have supported the show financially in the past. Really appreciate it. The show would not be what it is today without your help. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
Laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek speak, comic geek, uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is Comic Geek Speak.
Aquaman.